make sure, yeah.
Sure, no problem. We have approval of the minutes from last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the meetings from the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? We'll proceed to vote.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Levy, Scorts,
Yes.
Katrina,
Yes.
Remy.
Yes. Next item is public participation. Is there anybody here that would like to say anything other than the public hearings that we'll be having? Is there anybody here on item 6A talking about a resolution for encroachment? Is there anybody here to speak to that item? Seeing none, I guess we'll leave it. I was going to move that up to the top if the commissioners agreed, but we'll, well, we won't because nobody's here to speak for it. So we'll move into the public hearings then. The first one is the home child care planning and zoning. And we'll consider approving. Nancy, would you highlight us there, please?
Good evening, everyone. The first request here is a proposal for a code amendment. It's a minor change to our code, really, that's required by the state. They passed House Bill 1222. It was effective last September. It basically prohibits local communities from regulating family child care homes any differently than they would regulate a single family home. I reviewed our regulations with them a little bit, and we are fine on the small home child care homes that they are permitted in all districts except O, that allow single family homes. There are large home-based child care facilities which can have up to 12 children. Those are also included in the House bill. Currently, there are conditional uses in all zones in Cortez that allow single-family homes. So essentially, we were required to revise our code to, although we're already compliant with the small home-based homes, we need to revise it to not require a conditional use permit for the large home-based facilities. The non-home-based facilities can remain conditional uses in zones like they are now. So I have prepared for you a resolution to recommend amendment of the code to comply with House Bill 1222, and it's in front of you tonight for your consideration.
Does anybody have any questions for Nancy? Okay, we'll open a public hearing. If there's anyone to speak for or against, please take the podium and turn the mic on. Give your name and address. See no one, will.
Can you turn your mic so we can hear you better?
I can speak louder. Would that help? Okay. I used to be a coach. I can handle that. Seeing no one wanting to speak for or against, I'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the council approves the code revision as stated in the amendment, HB 21-1222.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Let's proceed to vote.
Scorts,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Remy.
Yes. Next item we have concerns the ADUs. And Nancy, would you highlight the items there, please?
This is a second proposed code amendment that you've been talking about for several months now. Currently, accessory dwelling units are conditional uses in the R1 and RE zones under our current land use code. It was suggested, and we've had discussions, that the way the code is currently written, it limits the opportunity for most people to be able to apply for an accessory dwelling unit. For those that haven't heard all our comments, an accessory dwelling unit is often referred to as a mother-in-law unit, granny flat, lots of different names, but it's essentially a small apartment built into a single-family home, or maybe even detached, say, in the backyard of a single-family home. The current regulations in Cortez have really made it tough for anyone to qualify to apply for one. So we have been working over the summer to perhaps revise those regulations. We have in front of you a draft of a revised code. The actual motion would be to recommend revisions, a resolution recommending revisions to the code to the city council, who actually would take final action on them. So I'll just go over them fairly briefly on what we settled after lots of talk. The first change to the existing code would be that you could apply for accessory dwelling units in a number of additional zones. Currently, it's limited to R1 and RE. We would add in R2, MH, NB, and C zone districts. In other words, if you have any district that has single-family homes, could now apply for an accessory dwelling unit if they met these other standards. The other standards that are in there that we would propose to revise is that, we're keeping it as a conditional use permit, which means full public hearings and neighbor notice. Right now, the parcel, we're keeping it the same, that the parcel would have an existing or proposed single-family dwelling that would be occupied by the property owner, so that's an important requirement. Also, the ADU, currently they're allowed to be attached, incorporated within the dwelling unit, or detached. That doesn't change. The fourth provision, right now, the code, I'm gonna have to remember this one, I don't have it in front of me, is very restrictive. It requires that the ADU not increase by more than, I believe, 20% of the existing living area. We have found that this has been really tough since most homes in Cortez are fairly small. So it was resulting in hardly anyone being able, without a really large home, being able to build any reasonable sized apartment. The way it's drafted now is that the ADU shall not result in an increase of more than 50% of the existing living area, or 750 square feet, whichever is greater. So in no way could it would keep most ADUs at 750 square feet. If you have a 1,500 square foot home, you would end up with the 750 square feet. If you had a larger home, you may be able to have a slightly larger apartment. If you have a smaller home, it would be limited down below 750 square feet. The next provision would be that is the same. The ADU must be used for rental purposes or may be used for rental purposes and shall be reserved for the occupancy of 1 or 2 persons. So we're talking not a big family moving into these, just 1 or 2 people. The next provision, this was a hard-fought one. The ADU must be provided with 2 off-street parking spaces. That's the current code. You need 2 more spaces for the small unit. If you can't provide a total therefore of 4 spaces off-street for the home, you would not be able to apply for an ADU because you wouldn't meet that requirement. We did revise that a little bit to say specifically that the spaces may be in tandem, defined as 1 car behind the other. So first car pulls in, say, to a garage, the second space can be right behind that, in effect blocking it at times. The idea there is everybody knows each other well enough to say, hey, move your car, I gotta get out. Let's see, the next provision is that still stays the same, and you still need, the ADU needs to comply with all setbacks, lot coverage, height, and design standards in the base zone, not alter the general appearance of the primary dwelling as a single-family residence. Next provision, have adequate water and sewer. Additional tap fees may be required for the dwelling. The next provision is, again, doesn't change. The ADU shall not adversely impact traffic flow or parking in the neighborhood. And the final one is that the lot shall meet the minimum lot size in the underlying zone district. Again, this is a change from the current code, which requires that the lot be 120% of the minimum lot size in the underlying zone district. So in other words, only lots that are larger than the minimum requirement in the zone were allowed to apply. And that was another one of the big barriers to allowing people to apply. Not many lots are oversized for the zone district with homes on them. So that's what we've got for you. I have prepared a draft resolution that would recommend the revision on to the city council, should you determine it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. I will open this up for public hearing. Anyone to speak for or against on this item? Seeing none, I will. On the ADUs you're talking about? Accessory dwelling units? That's the item we're on now?
Okay.
State your name and address, phone number, so I can put it in places that you don't want it? No.
My phone number is placarded all over the
Oh,
county,
okay.
so Stephen Candelaria, I own property at 1408 North Mildred, and it's very exciting to see this resolution finally come to a vote. I was here for the infancy stages of these conversations, and from the resolution that Nancy read tonight, I think that the board has done a great job compromising on what the changes to the code were. I think this gives a great opportunity to all of the zones in the city of Cortez, particularly because what spurred this conversation was a young couple that lived in the MH district who wanted an ADU but could not apply. And they definitely, within the parameters that Nancy has mentioned tonight, they would now be able to, and it gives them a great opportunity to move forward with whatever they would need that for. So I think it's a great opportunity for all the citizens of Cortez, and basically good job, Commission, getting this to where it is now.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess you could say I'm for it.
Anyone else to speak for or against? Okay, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, any questions for Nancy before I have one?
First of all, I have a question regarding paragraphs E, regarding the occupancy of 1 or 2 people, and paragraph I, the ADU not adverse traffic flow. How do we enforce that? Is that actually enforceable at all? That, you know, if somebody tried to cram 6 people in there, do we know, care, or what?
Well, I'll say that they're already in the code written that way, so I'm not sure how we've enforced in the past. I would say it's definitely, most communities would enforce that on a complaint basis.
Yeah, that one's, like you said, that's in the existing code, right? That's not a change?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not a new provision. The traffic one, I think that if we're providing a total of 4 parking spaces off the road, I would think almost by definition, you're not gonna be impacting traffic flow or parking in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought, but thank you. I do have one more item on that, and it's paragraph B. The parcel must contain an existing or proposed single-family unit that is or will be occupied by the property owner. I think because of the other items that we've been talking about, I would like to see something added to that would state no short-term rentals, because we are, in a larger sense, trying to get workforce housing for people who work here in town and are critical to keeping the town functioning. And I'd like to refer to a couple of other statements that were made in this item. If you look at the paragraph above B, where it says 22 accessory dwelling units, we need a mechanism to help meet the need of affordable housing. And if we're going to have ADUs that are let out on VRBOs or for people who are here for a month or so, it really does not help meet the need for affordable housing. And my second reference would be in the later agenda item regarding affordable housing. You have a paragraph there, and I'll read just portions of it, saying, otherwise such products will be unaffordable and or built for seasonal and vacation use. So the bottom line of my concern is that we add something to paragraph B, stating that these are for long-term rentals and not for short-term rentals. And I'd like to hear fellow commissioners address that. Thank you.
Anyone care to comment on that?
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
Okay. I'm wondering if we should consider addressing that issue separately. Other municipalities in the county have taken a look at it and kind of did an assessment of how many there were and how to go about regulating it. There have been some benefits to having short-term rentals in the community, so there might be some other more nuanced ways we can regulate that.
I personally think it's worded okay. I do have a question on item E, that it should be reserved for the occupancy of 1 or 2 persons. I have a concern if you have your, say, mother-in-law and father-in-law, but they have a special needs adult child that lives with them that they have to take care of. Would this prohibit that, because there would maybe be 3 people in the unit?
I would say yes. If you wanted to add the no short-term rental, I would add it right there and say the ADU may be used for long-term, 30 days or more rental purposes.
That was going to be a suggestion I was going to make. Thanks.
Any comments on the number of, I mean, the situation may be very rare, but I do have a high school friend that lives in a different state even, but they have to take care of their adult child due to a car accident.
And I agree with your sentiment. I just think that is more of an impact on the sewer and water. Even if it is a special needs adult, there's still going to be more usage of water, trash, all those sorts of things. And you said this was conditional use anyway, so each person would have to come before us with their circumstances, or am I getting that correct?
Absolutely, they would have to come in front of you and the city council, but you wouldn't be able to vary that requirement. I mean, you could do less, you could be more restrictive with a conditional use permit, but you couldn't say, no, you can have more. You couldn't violate that code provision.
So there's no way they could get a
I
variance
mean, I
or,
guess you could ask for a variance on it. I
Could
mean,
we-
realistically, we're not limiting the number of people in the main house. They could say, oh, he lives in the other part of the house.
The criteria in the code for variances to the zoning code are primarily limited to situations where there's a topographic or geographic limitation that would prevent the use or something like that. And here it's just the preference of the applicant for an increase that's unrelated to any condition on the ground that is limiting it. So I think Nancy's correct that there's probably not a provision for a variance to be granted in this situation if you did ask for more density.
okay, thank you.
And Chairman, while I'm in sentiment with everything you're saying, and it makes perfect sense to me, I think we'd be opening up a can of worms if we had it any larger than that.
I can't disagree with that. Because special situations probably will never happen, but you never know.
I would then like to make a proposal, if this is the right time, to add to paragraph E, the language, the ADU may be used for long-term, 30 days or more rental purposes.
Do we need a motion to amend that possibility, or just discuss it and say, I don't go along with that?
Yeah, you should do a motion to amend the resolution as presented, and then once all the amendments are considered, then do a motion to either approve or disapprove the overall
Resolution.
resolution.
Yeah, that's the way I saw it. So,
I'd just like to say real quickly that I agree with Rachel. I think it's a separate issue that we might want to explore separately. That's just my opinion.
the long-term rental, you
Yes.
mean? Okay, Lance?
I'm in agreement with Jim on this one, as far as at least a 30-day for the ADU unit. I certainly don't believe that the purpose of an ADU is to provide supplemental income to the house, to the property owners. It's in my understanding of an ADU is a property that for a mother-in-law, a son, a daughter, a friend that needs someplace to live. But I would not vote for allowing a VRBO or from either the property owners or the ADU units, my opinions.
And let me just go back a second to the rationale that I stated earlier, because, again, my intent is that we keep as much affordable housing in this town for people who live here, not for people who are passing through or for, generating massive income on a less than 30-day basis. And as Nancy proposed or stated, that paragraph E would be a good place to put this in. I would just hate to see anything get passed, and we have a bunch of short-term rentals here, and the people who live and work in this community are unable to afford a place. So my motion stands to add the wording long-term, 30 days or more to paragraph E.
So it is a motion now?
Yes.
I will second that.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Katrina, did you have anything to add?
Nope.
We will proceed to vote on the motion to amend.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Scorts,
Yes.
Weiss,
No.
Remy.
No. Motion fails. Any other changes anyone would like to make? Then let's, I would entertain a motion
Can I
to-
add one thing, Chairman? And I wouldn't want to, I don't want to, I wouldn't want to kill the resolution for that one minor suggestion from me. So just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, yeah, now we would
Right, right.
proceed to vote on the resolution as presented.
So someone needs to make a motion.
To accept it as is.
Yeah.
Chairman, I move to accept the resolution as written.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
There's a second, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Let's proceed to vote.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Scorts,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Remy.
Yes, motion passes. Moving on to the next item. Concerning resolution with food trucks. Nancy, would you highlight that, please? Can you hear me out there okay? Okay,
Okay, I'll get closer.
all right, thank you.
Okay, this is the third of our fourth proposed code amendments. This one speaks to the issue of whether or not food trucks should be allowed in the central business district. Right now, that is the only area of the city where they are not allowed as a permitted use. And there was requests from the farmers market to add them in. We held quite a bit of outreach. There was support from the general public for having food trucks downtown. We held targeted outreach with food truck owners and with business owners. Of course, food truck owners would like to be downtown. Business owners expressed some concerns with food trucks downtown next to brick and mortar restaurants. So we have drafted for you a resolution which recommends a revision to section 3.05, the use regulations of the land use code, to address the issue to some degree. And the way it is written, it's a recommendation again to the city council to revise the code. The way it's currently written, mobile vendors would be allowed in the central business district at approved temporary special events such as Third Thursdays and the farmers market. Mobile vendors may be allowed in the central business district outside of special events only after issuance of a conditional use permit with full consideration for impacts on adjacent businesses. Mobile vendors in the central business district shall only be allowed in approved locations and never in public right-of-way of state or public roads unless closed for approved special events. Mobile vendor food courts may be approved with a conditional use permit that would allow the mobile vendor to remain for up to 90 days on private land in an approved location. Mobile vendors shall also be regulated as set forth in the city code, Chapter 15, Article 9, mobile food vendors, sections 1566 through 1560. Essentially, that's health department regulations and business permit regulations, and all other applicable Cortez City Code sections now in effect or may be amended from time to time, with the exception that the conditional use permit shall determine the time frame. And what that means is the time frame now is you need to move your food truck every evening. You can't leave it there. The idea here is that if a, say, vacant lot in the central business district was approved to have food trucks for, I put in up to 90 days, they wouldn't have to leave every evening. We did hear from food truck owners that that was a difficult thing to do every evening, move it. The idea in other zones of course, in the city is that it just pulls in and might serve people and pulls away. So that's what we've drafted after hearing from as many people as we did. Again, it's a recommendation to revise the code to the city council.
Did I hear you correctly that it would only be allowed on private property lots, not municipal lots or anything?
Not on public roads or in public right-of-way.
Okay.
And I don't think the public probably would want to do a conditional use permit to allow them for a long-term basis. But the idea there was, most of those roads, we didn't want to interfere with traffic, we didn't want to interfere with parking, we didn't want them setting up right outside or another restaurant. The main street is the state highway, and of course, the state highway wouldn't want them parked long-term in the state highway either.
Okay, thank you.
But if there was a special event involving a parking lot or a side street where the road was closed, then they could be there for the term of the special event.
On the lot, but not on the street?
Right.
Okay.
On the street,
If it's closed, they could be on the street, is what I wrote.
Okay, kind of
So
like
say you
the,
close down Market Street from Main to First for a special event. I think that's happened before.
yeah,
Where
sometimes.
you might allow tents or whatever, then you might allow food trucks, or you would allow.
Yeah, or Christmas parade or something, sometimes they close
Yeah.
some streets there in that vicinity or whatever. Okay, I will open it up for a public hearing. Anyone to speak for or against? State your name and address, please. Push the button in the very front, turns green. Okay.
So my name is Julie Perriman. I'm the Cortez Farmers Market Manager. My address is 5258 Road 24.5, Cortez, Colorado. I'm obviously for this. They went over what they drafted for you. I think it's very fair and reasonable. And this is something I've been working at with the city and everything for over a year and a half. I can let you know that the farmers market actually is a big draw. We have 200 to 300 customers come through it each Saturday. At the end of the when we leave at noon, those people continue to shop in Cortez. So I'm very much for this.
When is the last Saturday or the last date of the farmer's market this year?
October 29th. So we do 5 months, from the first Saturday in June to the last Saturday in October.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for her? Thank you. Anyone else to speak for or against? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, I would entertain any thoughts.
Nancy, as far as denoting an event or a happening as a special event, have you designed the process that you want to go through that? I mean, are they going to have to come to city council and get permission for a special event? Do they just say they're putting on a special event?
Well, I gave some examples of what I felt like were approved special events. I honestly don't know the process that's followed to get an approved special event, but I assume there was one.
So they would have to fill out a special event form and go through this approval process through the city. And it involves, you know, Parks and Rec potentially, Police Department, Public Works, all of those things in order to get approved. So I think they look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, let's take for an example the farmer's market. Would they just need one special event permit for the 5 months, or would they need one for every week?
Yes, just one special event permit. But in that case, I don't believe the 90-day situation would apply. It would just have to be for that one day, every Saturday.
I have to say, I'm really struggling with this. I understand the advantage of food trucks. When I lived in San Diego, I basically lived off of food trucks for my lunch. But my problem, or the conundrum I'm dealing with, is, like Julie said, they're open every weekend, but there's a restaurant, 2 restaurants directly across from the farmer's market that are open on Saturday for the time that the farmer's market is going on. Now, like I said, I'm struggling. I have struggled with this, and I just want to make sure that the food trucks are safe health-wise, that they're not taking up public parking, and that there is some control over the special event process. And that, if that's the case, then that helps answer some questions to me.
Yes, that is the case you've heard about the process for a special event, and then those provisions, the last references, sections 15-66 through 1568-8, those speak to all the food safety issues and others.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to take Lenz's thought just a little bit further, and I mentioned this in the last meeting, and I also sent Rachel a copy of an ordinance that I found from a different municipality, but I would like to protect the existing brick and mortar businesses as well. I don't want to stifle food trucks coming in, but I think they should have to have an itinerant vendor license. I just want to be on record with that because I think that's super important for the city. It's going to create extra enforcement, all that sort of thing. So there should be a tracking and there should be a fee because they're not operating a brick and mortar business.
Lance, any comment? I mean, Jim?
Oh, yes.
Jim, sorry?
If you're done, I have a comment. All right, my first one, I think you're going to get a chuckle out of, but then we'll get into something else. On the front page where it says definition, as used in this article, mobile food vendor shall mean food establishment that is not intended to be permanent and is a motorized wheeled vehicle or trailer attached to a motor vehicle. So if at my house I want to make a whole big batch of escargot and put it on a push cart and it has no motor, is that going to be allowed under this, since it just talks about motorized vehicles?
It does say it has to be attached. We're reading it now.
I'd hate to
I guess
be
not.
discriminating against push cart
Yeah, I
owners,
think
you know?
we are.
I guess it would be called mobile vendor.
You might, based on your comment there, you might also consider whether or not referring to trailers that are attached, because most of the trailers get parked and detached from the motor vehicle, and the car takes off, the truck, and it leaves the trailer unattached. So we may want to kind of massage that language, and if it's the commission's will to include push carts we may want to also add that language in there.
Thank you. Yeah, because if I get my organ grinder monkey and my push cart, I want to be able I can do that. All right, now, something a little more concerning. Getting to section 15-68-1, hours of operation. The way it's stated is fine, but in the section above it, it says violations of this punishable by sections, et cetera, for not displaying licenses. I think we should have something in section 15-68-1 saying failure to comply with this section shall be in violation and punishable as set forth somewhere, because there's no consequences if they don't do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, Jim, I just want to state that, so those are part of the city code, not the land use code. So I provided those for your reference, but there'd be a different process for amending those. I'm sure the city council would be interested in your comments, but it's not in this resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That satisfies me. Okay, and then moving along, I have the same concern, I guess, and you're probably going to give me the same answer, but I just want to hear it. Section 15-68.7 regarding noise, and then below that, point 8, violations. That would be your same response, and if so, I'm fine with it.
Yes, those are part of 15, section 15 point, whatever is part of the city code, not land use code.
Okay, thank you.
But we did reference it and said you still got to comply with city code.
Okay, then my only concern is the push cart thing, which I'll move on when we get there.
Well, actually, the resolution reads mobile vendors. If you look at the resolution, it doesn't distinguish between a pedal vehicle, a push cart, or a motorized.
Well, it does, because it says, as used in this article only, mobile food vendors shall mean, and then there's a definition of mobile food vendor that is not intended to be permanent and is a motorized, etc. So while it says mobile food vendor, it gives a definition of mobile food vendor as a motorized vehicle in the next line.
I've got some suggested language that you might consider. After the word permanent in line 2 of the definition, put the following: and is a motorized vehicle, comma, a trailer that is towed by a motorized vehicle, comma, or a wheeled cart that is propelled by human or animal power, comma, and which is designed and equipped, and then continue, because, you may have the horse cart.
Let's not put the cart before the horse, though, okay?
Well, I guess I'm in favor of food vehicles, whatever, mobile vendors at the farmer's market. And we had the one gentleman here wanting to put some on his private lot last time. I'm for that too, because I don't think the same clientele that wants to go sit in a restaurant will be the same clientele that would go to a specialty food truck, and that's where I'm coming from. But now, this poses a whole new wrinkle here. Because really, the resolution only addresses mobile food vendors, but if you go back to what the definition is, that wouldn't be for us to change, though, would it? No. So our focus should be on mobile vendors, and if we want to allow them at special events and/or on a private lot.
So I'm just trying to be clear. Are you saying then that I would need to have something in there about a push cart, or I wouldn't, or I can, or I can't? I'm not clear.
No, I don't think for this resolution, you need to, or you can't change the definition. That would be for the city council. Now, what can be done is in the memorandum to the city council, the planners can include a reference to this discussion and indicate that it appeared that a change in the definition was warranted, and in fact, in the ordinance that would be presented to the city council, that change in the definition could also be included. So, you know, you could get your input in terms of the memo from the staff, but the actual resolution, and I suppose even in the resolution, you could mention that you believe the definition needs to be expanded by the city council in the city code.
I would ask staff to add a memorandum when we pass this to city council. Thank you, and I'll get off my high horse or whatever.
Any other comments?
I would ask that the recommendation for itinerant vendor license is put in that same memorandum, if possible, and I would make a motion to pass the resolution as is, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
I would make a motion to pass the resolution as is, Mr. Chairman.
But you said you wanted to include something in the
Oh, about itinerant vendor licenses, a recommendation.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Is there any further discussion? Let's proceed to vote.
Squirts,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Remy.
Yes. Next item on the agenda, item D, dealing with affordable housing. And Nancy, would you highlight that, please? I think,
Okay, this is the last of our proposed code amendments. It's probably the most complicated, so I'll try and get through it. The concept's fairly simple, however. The idea here is that we have added two new definitions to the code, one for affordable housing and one for workforce housing. The affordable housing definition is pegged at, defined as households with an income that is 80% or lower than area median income of households of that size. Generally, many places you would refer to that as low-income housing. Workforce housing is defined as housing that's affordable to households with an income between 80%, the low income, the affordable level, and 140% of area median income. So we're defining that as workforce housing. Generally, people like teachers, policemen, firemen, planers might meet that definition of the 140% of area median income. So we've added those two definitions. They do require that the intention is that it be held by a nonprofit or governmental organization for at least 20 years. However, for-profit developers might also be able to use these definitions if they provide assurances that the housing is and will remain either affordable or workforce for at least 20 years. We then are recommending revisions to 3 of the, is that right? 3 of the land use district densities. So in other words, this is a density bonus for affordable or workforce projects. It's the 3 zone districts that allow multifamily housing right now, the R2, the MH, or manufactured home, and MB, which is neighborhood business zone districts. They all, oddly enough, allow multifamily development at the exact same density. Currently, the maximum density in all 3 of those districts is pegged at 3,000 square feet per unit. When you, many communities define that per acre, so that works out to about 14 units to the acre. The idea here is that if you were to present an actual restricted affordable project, you could build up to a density of 2,000 square feet per unit, or 21, was it 21? Units to the acre as a maximum. So the idea here is that you add the two new definitions, and then you revise 3.09 R2 residential multifamily district to add a new category, a density of at 2,000 square feet per unit for affordable projects. You add that exact same density bonus in the MH district and the neighborhood business district. Now, we know that there have been some concern about what this does to the city. We have provided for you maps here that do, and they're in your packet, that show the larger vacant parcels at that zone district, and then it multiplied out some overall increases in densities. Doug Roth, I think, also provided for you some examples. So, for example, right now, to give you an idea of what kind of density this looks like, the Adobe Apartments at South Ash and First Street and Cedar Terrace at South Cedar Street somehow have already been built out at 1 unit per 2,000 square feet. So those are the maximum density that you could have in the city with this density bonus. He then showed you a few examples of places in between there. Brubaker is at 1 unit per 3,000 square feet. Calkins, I'm not sure how he defined that, but it's 1 unit per 3,800 square feet. Sleeping Ute Apartments, 1 per 6,000. Prairie Mesa is another one that's right at 1 unit per 3,000. So I'm hoping that helps you picture what kind of densities we're talking about here.
Did I hear you correct that each unit could be 2,000 square
No,
feet?
this is confusing, but the city establishes densities per 2,000 square, so let's just convert it to 1 unit per acre, or units per acre. Right now, you're at 14, I believe, 0.7 units per acre for R2, MH, and B. That's your maximum density. If you adopt this for affordable housing, your maximum density rises to 1 unit per 21 units to the acre. The 2,000 square feet is really, or 3,000 square feet is a little bit confusing, because that, it means for every 3,000 square feet of lot area, you can have 1 unit. Another example, and the one that we were approached from an affordable housing provider, we also have an applicant here that you'll see fairly soon, or the city council will see pretty soon, 10,000 square foot lots, okay? There's quite a few of those out there in at least the MH and MB zones. So right now, because your densities, it's 10,000 square feet, that's pretty easy math. Your density is 1 unit maximum per 3,000 square feet. Divide 10,000 by 3,000 and you get 3.3, or 3 units on a 10,000 square foot lot. Then you get to apply all the other setbacks and lot coverage, et cetera, okay, and maximum height to determine if you can even fit those units on there. If we take an affordable housing bonus on a 10,000 square foot lot, so we've dropped the density down to 1 unit per 2,000 square feet, divide 10,000 square feet by 2,000 square feet, we get 5 units maximum. Again, we're not changing setbacks or heights or lot coverage, so whether you can actually put 5 units on there or not, I don't know. Okay. But you could try.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll open up for a public hearing on affordable housing. Anyone to speak for or against? Where is it at? Well, are those maps of the,
This is in general for the whole town. This is not a specific development.
It's for the future. It's not been decided, like it's, nobody's come with one yet.
Stephen, go ahead then.
Shall I restate my name and address?
No, that's fine, we got it for the record.
All right. I'm here to speak very much for this resolution, and here's why. Something that has been mentioned is that there is that gap, right? Typically, when we talk about affordable housing, a lot of times that bracket will qualify for some sort of subsidies or some sort of means to help them accommodate to pay for their living situation. Then there's obviously the upper bracket above the 140% that, well, it's not really that big of an issue. Obviously something that we've seen through the COVID-19 pandemic, and also that Montezuma County and the city of Cortez has done a great job of getting high-speed internet, is urban flight. So we see all of these people with remote workforce capabilities. We have the internet capabilities here to support those people. Well, what better place to live than in Cortez? Well, they sell their houses in Denver, in Austin, Houston, California, wherever, for a much higher price than what the market is here. They buy up all that inventory, supply and demand, everything shoots up, we compound inflation on top of that. Well, that bracket in the middle, the workforce housing, the inventory is now gone for those people, right? But they just make a little too much money to have any sort of subsidization, and they're in a real pinch, because not only is there no inventory, but the inventory that is available is really high. So what this does, this resolution does, is just like Nancy mentioned, the opportunity for developers and contractors to share the infrastructure cost amongst, say, even just 5 units as opposed to 3 units is huge. It is a really big help to get these projects off the ground. And then there is the capability and the opportunity to move forward and to fulfill the needs of the community for the workforce housing. I'm talking in particularly workforce housing here. The other thing is there's really no such thing as a perfect piece of property, right? There's always going to be something that needs to be done. You may have to move a sewer main. You may have to install a large portion of electrical infrastructure. You may have to install water main. The more units are there, the more that it's dispersed among the entirety of the project. At the end of the day, that cost will always get passed on to the end user in one way, shape, or form. Well, if each end user has to take a smaller piece of that pie, it will then create more affordability on each individual unit. So as far as density is concerned, I think that the 2,000 square feet per unit as far as the density is a great step in the right direction. Now, I'm going to take it a step further, and I would like to talk a little bit more about what the requirements also say. So 50% max lot coverage, right? So on a 10,000 square foot lot, your foundation footprint can only be 5,000 square feet, okay? Well, let's say that you wanted to build 1,200 square foot units, or just for an example. Well, you can't fit 5 1,200 square foot units in that one footprint. So what does that force the developer to do? Go vertical, right? We've got to start putting these on top of each other. Well, then there are the restrictions. In R2, for example, it's 35 feet, which 35 feet is pretty easy to stay under. But be conscious that this is just the first step in working forward to making more projects available, right? A 7-foot offset on the side and the rears is sometimes hard to meet depending on the shape of the lot, right? If you have a really strange lot, sometimes 7-foot side is pretty difficult to make. Also, 7-foot rear is sometimes difficult to make. Typically, the 20-foot front is not an issue. So I would advise the commission, this is I commend you greatly. This is a great step in the right direction, particularly for workforce housing. However, be conscious that the other parameters, depending on the lot and the project, can be restrictive. And I will say it is on the developer, the contractor, to get creative on how they can work within the confines of the rest of the code. But this is really good stuff. So with that being said, good job, and be conscious of the other requirements in each and every zone and how that may affect future projects and their feasibility.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else to speak for or against? I should have started a time limit. Normally it's 3 minutes, but Stephen likes to talk, so I don't know how far we were on 3 minutes. But
Well, I'll be short because, he said most of what I wanted to say, but I have something to add. My
name
is-
and address, please.
I know.
Okay.
Kim Welty. I'm with Housing Solutions for the Southwest. We're a nonprofit housing developer, affordable housing developer. We do a lot of work in the city of Cortez and Montezuma County, rehabbing existing homes for low-income homeowners to help maintain affordable housing units. So we are the ones who are looking at doing at least 4 units on it. It's like a 10,600 square foot lot. And one thing I wanted to point out, in addition to everything that was said before, is for these smaller projects, there are not government subsidies available. They go for the big projects, your tax credits, your big CDBG grants, et cetera. So we're trying to build this project out of our own funds, and hopefully we can afford a loan where the rents will pay for that. So it's important to us to maximize our number of units on the lot. And the other thing, as far as these smaller lots within the city limits, that's being proactive on infill instead of sprawl. And in reviewing the comprehensive plan that the city of Cortez has today, I noticed that that is one of their goals, to look at spreading affordable housing around, workforce housing around, instead of concentrating it in big projects on big lot areas. So that is also what we're trying to do with our project. And also, in looking around town, as Nancy was talking about the different projects, I noticed there is a lot of precedent, not only in the big apartments, but in some of the smaller lots where the development has been less than the 3,000 square foot that we currently see in the code. I don't know when the code was changed or whatever, but there are some very nice projects that don't meet that 3,000 square feet. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else to speak for or against? Close the public hearing, and any comments from commissioners? I will make one comment. I know that when it comes to trying to recruit teachers for the schools in the area, that you can have someone come with a family and they say, well, I can't afford to live here. And we lose people because of not having housing, and that's just my comment from the educational realm of things. Any other comments? I'd entertain a motion then to adopt the resolution as presented.
I move that we adopt the resolution as presented.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We'll proceed to vote.
Scorts?
Yes.
Weiss?
Yes.
McDaniel?
Yes.
Remy?
Yes. Next item deals with the proposal for a car wash. Nancy, would you highlight us on that, please?
This is a request from 7B Building and Development, and DOB LLC as the lot owner, represented by Baseline Engineering. They're here tonight. The request is for a new car wash, 3,537 square feet of car wash. It's proposed to be located on 2 parcels, which total 1.5 acres. They are located at 699 Canyon Drive and 313 South Broadway. They will need to be combined before construction. The property, both parcels are currently zoned highway commercial. They're currently vacant. Car washes in the C zone are a conditional use, so they're required to apply for a conditional use permit. Combine that review with their site plan review. The property is bounded on the south by commercially zoned land that includes other auto-oriented land uses. I think it's Napa Auto, why can't I say that? Napa Auto Parts. Family Dollar is located across Broadway. Properties to the north and west are residential, zoned R1, however. The property to the north along Canyon Drive is developed with single-family homes right now. The property to the west is a mobile home park. I've provided for you the development standards. For the most part, the proposal meets those. There were some problems with the proposal, and you'll see those in conditions. The sign as proposed greatly exceeded the height requirement. So they proposed it at 45 feet in height, with the current code being 25 feet. So that will need to be revised through the approval process. As far as issues with the project, I give you the purpose of the site plan, making sure it complies with all regulations. The conditional use permit, however, is when there is a use that may be permitted subject to conditions imposed on the approval of the use that are designed to reasonably mitigate any adverse impacts upon surrounding properties. The criteria are stated in the staff report for conditional use, although some of them might not apply. In this case, with adjacent single-family homes and residential properties, there are some, I think, that we want to highlight and go over specifically. The number 1 criteria on that is whether the use is compatible with the adjacent existing uses and other uses allowed in the zoning district. It does state that compatibility shall be expressed in terms of appearance, architectural scale and features, site design and scope, landscaping, as well as control of adverse impacts, including noise, vibration, smoke, fumes, gas, on, traffic circulation, parking, or other undesirable or hazardous conditions. Those are probably the main condition or the main criteria that there's some concerns with. It does appear otherwise that the property meets all development standards with the exceptions of the height of the sign, which would need to be limited. And then also provision of sidewalks along all street frontages. They did not propose sidewalks in their site plan. However, when I brought it to their attention, they did say that they did mean to provide those. So that's another concern and condition that we would need to address to make sure it complies with all city standards. The conditional use permit, though, does have a little bit more concerns regarding the impact on adjacent residential properties. Particularly of concern are those single-family homes on Canyon Drive. The existing homes are currently fenced with a wood privacy fence at this time. The car wash, however, is likely to be loud and difficult to mitigate when located in such close proximity to residences. The vacuum station is located particularly close to residential properties. The applicants, after discussion, have proposed to locate the vacuum structure in a masonry building and have added additional fencing and landscaping to the residential fences that already exist. Hours of operation are proposed for 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. Startup and closing would obviously begin a little bit before that at 7:30 a.m., cease at approximately 8:30 p.m. Regarding noise, the land use code states that noise shall not create a nuisance at the property line. State of Colorado mitigates noise and defines noise as a nuisance at the levels I showed in the staff report. Basically, for residential property being the receiving zone from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is not quite coincident with their operating hours, but it's 55 dBA. From 7 p.m. to the next 7 a.m., it drops down 5 decibels to 50 dBA. I make note of that because that's basically the easiest way for us to define and measure it, and to make sure that we're not creating a nuisance to those adjacent single-family homes. I think that's most of the discussion. I gave you all the agency review. I think that there was some concern expressed about trash pickup and whether or not they had a correct backup, but other than that, I think it's just general concerns and issues and requirements to comply with the agency requirements. Just to summarize all that, staff is recommending the approval of the conditional use permit and site plan. There are I have 7 suggested conditions, however, to address some of those concerns. The first one being that they comply with all requirements of all the affected districts, utility providers, and CDOT. The second one being that their construction plans, this is standard, be stamped by a Colorado licensed architect or engineer, that they obtain a building permit prior to any construction on site. Third, again, is fairly standard. It's about the landscaping. We want to make sure that they comply with the second submitted landscape plan, which provided additional landscaping adjacent to the home on Canyon. Number 4, prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall vacate the existing lot line, consolidate the 2 properties. Number 5, we've asked that they revise the plans to provide sidewalks meeting all city standards along street frontages. Number 6, prior to issuance of the site sign permit, the proposed pole sign be revised to meet code. And then number 7 is operation of the car wash shall not exceed CRS 2512-103 maximum permissible noise levels. Specifically, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., noise levels shall not exceed 55 dBA at the property line. From 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., noise levels shall not exceed 50 dBA at the property line.
And are they aware of all of those conditions?
They're here, you might want to ask them that, but I have gone over them, and they do believe they can meet those noise standards. I have concerns, but they're comfortable.
Okay, I'll open this up for public hearing. Anyone here to speak for or against the car wash, please take the podium. Or move it. Yeah, that's fine, just as long as you keep pushing the button and it should turn green. The button's like right in front. It's kind of tricky sometimes. No. Needs to turn green. You could.
Okay, we'll pin it down.
Well, you could. Can you move that other one to the? Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Just bend it a little bit.
My concern with another car wash, and I use that word, another, is we've already got 3, and one of them doesn't seem to be doing too well. And we're in a drought, in case you all haven't noticed. We're restricted to water, our gardens and our lawns, so many days a week, and threw out so many hours only. So I don't think we need to be wasting our water washing cars. That's it.
Your name and address, ma'am?
Kay Garlinghouse, 33 Texas, and my son is on the water board for MVI.
Thank you. Anyone, go ahead. Oh,
Don't be shy.
yeah,
Hi. Oh, me?
no,
Oh. My name is Glenn Layton. I live at 45 East Andrew Lane. And I can understand the issue of worrying about water, but one thing to keep in mind, with the new technologies of car washes today, they recycle their water. So it is a bigger savings to the water if you go to a car wash and pay for it than running all that water down the gutter, washing your car at home. That's just something to keep in mind. I would really like to see that piece of property in a good, useful way, and I think this helps South Broadway to sort of get, you've got a lot of revitalization going on there, which is great. I think this just is another piece in the puzzle that maybe will help that. We'd like to keep things looking a little better down that way, and hopefully this would be one way we could do that. It's a good, positive business. I realize there's a lot of car washes, but not, again, they're busy, and they're new. This is a new type. And I think the savings in water in the long run would be more. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
My name is Kara Yoder. I'm at 707 Canyon Drive. I would like to speak against the car wash for many reasons, actually. We live on a quiet, dead-end street that is all residential. We have a traffic problem at that intersection already. There was a child that was hit on the first day of school trying to cross that intersection. And the proposal is putting their entrance and exit on a residential dead-end street. Best case, even if we did get a traffic light, if there's more than 2 residents trying to leave our street, they're not going to be able to turn into or out of that car wash. There is maybe 3 car lengths between the Broadway and that first house. Even with the noise, under whatever decibels, do you think our dogs aren't going to be barking constantly with traffic? I mean, I don't want a car wash 12 feet from my backyard. That lot is also a school bus stop that picks up all of the children on Canyon Drive and in the mobile home park to the west. So where are they then going to move that bus stop, and how is the bus going to turn around? I know eventually there will be a business there, so that would have to be addressed, but bringing all that traffic in, plus the additional traffic from Popeyes, I mean, those street signs in the median have been plowed over and replaced, I don't even know how many times as it is. And the traffic is just consistently worse. I just don't see it happening with their entrance right there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There was someone else, yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, my name's Peggy Rogers. I live at 703 Canyon Drive, and I also am rejecting this for the fact that, what about the damage to my fences? What about trying to get a trailer in and out of my backyard? That's going to be right there. I'm not going to have enough room to actually maneuver my trailer into my backyard. I have a fence that opens up that I can get a trailer into the backyard. I'm not going to be able to do that. That you're going to have 12 feet. My trailer's a lot longer than that, so there's no way you're going to be able to do that. The other reason is, like she said, my dog, her dog, the dog across, from my neighbor and everything else. All those dogs are going to be going off all day long. It's going to irritate my dog. He's got anxiety already from being home by himself. So now you're going to put more anxiety onto him to putting the noise from 7 to 7. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning. I get home from work, and I'm usually in bed by 7 o'clock, asleep, trying to get asleep. If I hear that noise out there, I'm not going to be able to sleep. And looking at all these car wash that we have already, where do the homeless go to sleep? In the car wash. So that means I'm going to have homeless people behind my house sleeping, leaving their trash and everything else. I understand you're going to say that it's going to stay clean. How are they going to do that? If you have people coming from town living behind my house in the car wash, they're going to do it. It's inevitable. They've already do it downtown. And we do have enough car washes. We don't need another car wash there. I can tell you right what she said on that road from Canyon Drive onto Broadway. I cross that road every night to go for a walk. You want to know how many times I've almost got hit? And 3 of those times was by the police department itself. There is no way that that is going to be a good situation right there, especially with the in and out right there on Canyon Drive. It's going to be bad enough as it is. We don't need that. And I don't need the damage to my fence from the water, back spray. And what happens if the recyclable water ends up flooding my backyard? Who's going to take care of that damage? That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tiffany Volpondo. I'm at 706 Canyon Drive. I share the same concerns as they do with the car wash, the dogs barking. That's going to cause us issues. I guess we're going to have citations, yada yada, noise complaints about our dogs because there's car wash. But I have children in school. That intersection has been a problem. Kid got hit. I won't let my kids cross there, so my kids do ride that bus. And I'd be curious as to where the bus would go. They do not go down Canyon because they say there's nowhere for them to turn around. I'm just really concerned about the traffic, I guess. And the proposal has the entrance on Canyon Drive, which is a residential street that kids play on. I don't know, it just, like they said, dead-end street just brings a lot of busyness to it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for or against? Close the public hearing. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Nancy?
I'd like to start if I could. I agree with Karen and Peggy and the other young lady that spoke about Canyon Drive. I happen to live across the street, or across Broadway on 3rd Street. That intersection has to be the most dangerous intersection in the city. It's confusing. There are trucks that miss the divided part of the highway. You see them all the time. They're going down to in front of Glenn's store and turning left to get back on 491, or they're going down to Conoco Corners and turning left on 491. From the south, coming up to that intersection, there's a hotel, 3 fast food restaurants, a Family Dollar that gets deliveries around the clock, And then you come up to the intersection where the highway splits. Coming from the north, you have another fast food restaurant, you have a restaurant, you have several other businesses going south on Broadway, and the speed limit is very rarely observed. Now, it's not my intent to to punish the owners, but we're talking every night from my front door or front window, I can look out and I see cops at that intersection because of an accident. There's been more than 3 that I'm aware of, students almost hit crossing that road because the pedestrian crossing signs are not observed. The speed limit is way too high through that intersection. It doesn't drop to below 40 until you're through the intersection. You have people frequenting the businesses on South Broadway between 7th Street and 3rd Street that need to turn around and go south. So they go to that intersection and they flip a U while dodging the trucks, dodging other people, dodging the people coming out from Canyon Drive, dodging the people coming out from 3rd Street. Now that intersection to me, I cannot vote to approve this project unless the city demands that CDOT review that. I saw the reviews in the packet. I would have to say that the reviews were severely lacking and they underestimated the traffic by quite a bit. Then you have a school, you have a church school and you have the middle school that go to school, that start school at 8 in the morning and get out at 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon. And they're exiting off of 3rd Street, either to go south or north on that intersection. So I am in complete agreement with the women that live on Canyon Drive. I know exactly what they're talking about. In fact, my little dog probably hears your little dog barking, and he'll bark at all times in the middle of the night and stuff like that. So I'm very sympathetic to what they're saying, and I think that needs to be, I think adding even a car wash makes that intersection even more hazardous than it already is. And that's just the way I feel about it, so.
Any other comments?
I just have a question for staff. So when the houses were built, was this parcel of land already zoned commercial, or?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. We'd have to research it and see, but it is currently zoned commercial.
Jim, any comments?
Yes, I do. Yes, I have a couple questions. Are we required, or do we have any relationship with the school regarding this bus stop? Do we talk to them like we do other agencies to get their comments, yes or no?
The school district was not notified of this project.
Is that something we have done, we usually do, we usually don't do, or how does that work?
We usually do not do it, well, were they, Cheryl, do you have the adjacent landowners, were they close enough? No, for commercial projects, we normally would not notify the school district. For residential projects, we do, for the impact on the schools as far as kids, additional kids.
So are we to take into consideration or not to take into consideration the bus stop? Because that is, you know, quite a jammed up area. Is that just something we cannot address?
I honestly do not know where the bus stop was. I can't, I don't think it would stop on private land, though.
Jim, I think, if I may interject, just knowing a little bit about the school bus system, that the bus driver, if that lot or where he's stopping now, excuse me, I didn't mean to be, that person who drives the bus does not, would have the authority to change, and all he would have to do is talk to the people at the bus garage, and they would say, all he would have to say is, I can't pick up kids there anymore. They're developing it as a car wash, and I need to find another place, and I found this place that I can turn around, and it's usually not something the city would get involved with. It's more between the bus driver and the bus garage that would handle it.
All right, thank you. And then the other question I have, and I think maybe Lance already addressed this, CDOT has passed on this, that it's okay to have that ingress and egress right there?
I've not yet gotten formal responses from CDOT, but they will be required prior to any approvals.
Okay, so we do not have approval by CDOT that this is okay at the moment?
No, there's a condition CDOT specifically mentioned in condition number 1.
All right, thank you. And then in your proposal, you saying that regarding the noise, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., why do we not have it 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. during the hours of business? Because I can foresee a time down the road where the owners of the business might say, well, we're going to open it up from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and we're allowed the decibel level during that period, so why couldn't they just change their hours of operation? I would assume that we would want to have it from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. during their hours of operation, so why did we do 7?
I was following state statute, so you could be more restrictive than that. I'd suggest you not bump up the 7 p.m. Keep 7 p.m. because that's...
Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, but you might want to change that 7 to 8 a.m.
And then along similar lines, you know, as Mr. Coleman has suggested in the past when I brought up noise issues, it seems like we need a decibel meter. Because if we're going to have something in here about decibels not being exceeded, and we don't have a decibel meter right now, how are we to enforce this? And so that's neither here nor there as far as the applicant goes. It's just a comment between myself and staff that we need to have some way to enforce the decibel, since we certainly don't have it right now.
We have had that conversation with code enforcement.
Thank you. And then you have 7 specifications at the end of the approval. And because there's so much paperwork here, I wasn't able to figure out, has the applicant actually submitted a drawing stating that they are going to have a shielding for the vacuum bays, or is that not in the drawings? Help me out there.
You should have 2 different landscape plans. One's labeled noise mitigation that came in after the fact. So I want to make it clear there's a separate sheet in your packet that after the first submittal, I requested additional noise mitigation for the residences. So they added an extra fence, they've added additional landscaping, they switched the vacuum building to a masonry type building, to all in an attempt to help address the noise issue.
Okay, thank you. And then the fencing along the residential side, again, I wasn't able to find in here, what material is that made of? How high is it? Do we know what sound mitigation it'll actually take care of?
Well, let me look before I start making statements.
As you know, the packet was quite large and I couldn't find that one.
Yeah. Can you, the applicant is here.
Not just yet. You'll have your turn in a minute.
This isn't it.
So they don't keep kids in the car.
Nancy, would it be helpful if the applicant spoke to that issue? Okay,
Yes,
I guess you're up, if you want to go to the microphone so we can hear you. And just speak to that one specific item. Thanks. Nancy wants to hear from the applicant.
So yes, in regard to the fence, it would be a 6-foot fence. I believe that's the maximum without needing a building permit for it or needing any additional approvals. That fence will be made out of a material we haven't determined yet, but it would be a wood fence to match the residential area, but it'd be a little thicker for noise mitigation.
Thank you. That answers that question for me, Nancy.
Jim, Commissioners, if it helps, the very last exhibit in that packet was the additional noise mitigation.
I guess those are the only questions I have for staff at this time.
And you said CDOT did not comment?
No, but they're super slow right now. I haven't seen a comment from them on any of our projects in the time frame we asked for it.
So then, is there a specification on the approval that CDOT approved this? Where would that be?
Condition number 1.
Oh, number 1. Thank you. I see it now. Thanks. So this is conditional upon CDOT approving that entryway.
And if we approve this, it just goes to city council and then they take further looks at it, is that?
Yes, it would also have to go to city council. It's tentatively scheduled for, get it, the 13th.
For the first reading.
No, there's only one. Yeah, for next Tuesday.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, your action tonight would be to either recommend approval or denial. It would still go to city council with a recommendation of denial. Now, obviously, the applicant may want to, that they would be gambling a little more but I have seen councils and boards of commissioners approve items that were recommended for denial by the planning commission, but you don't have veto authority to stop the project at this point. You're just making a recommendation. I would caution, and based on the comments, I'm not sure which way this one's going to go, but if you're looking at, if anybody's anticipating a motion for denial or a recommendation of denial to the city council, on page 2 of the memo from the planner, under the caption issues, it lists the 6 criteria that are required to be met under the code, and the failure to meet one or more of them would be sufficient grounds for a denial, or in your case, a recommendation of denial. But I would caution you that if you're anticipating a motion for denial, that you tie it specifically to one of those 6 criteria, one or more of them, and indicate that you don't believe the application meets condition 3 or whatever it may be, and so that you provide some specificity rather than just say, I don't like it, it'll be bad for the neighbors, or some generic comment like that is not helpful in determining a denial. And so I would caution you that if somebody anticipates making a motion for denial, that you review those 6 items and bringing you back to the question on the school district, even if they aren't a party that is notified, if you can find some criteria amongst the 6 listed in the code that would tie it to a school district issue, that could be a basis for a denial if you felt that the problems with schools made it difficult for the applicant to meet one of the 6. But if not, if you think they've met them all, or have the ability to meet them all through a conditional approval, such as waiting on CDOT approval and those sort of things, then a motion for approval would be appropriate. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
I'd just like to say that I really do feel for the residents. I understand that this isn't what you want to see, but based on our scope of authority, I mean, I don't think we can deny this based on emotion. And I'm sorry, you know, that we're not going to do, at least I can't do what you want me to do, because we're supposed to just, does it meet the land use code or doesn't it? So I just want to apologize, but we just have to stay within the parameters of our authority.
And I would caution the Commission that you still need to provide the applicant the opportunity to make its presentation before you make a motion.
So if I heard you right, you're saying that the applicant should come and speak?
Yes, if they choose to. They don't have to, but you have to give them the opportunity to address whatever issues they feel are pertinent.
Okay. Would you take the stand and we'll ask you questions, I guess?
So, Tez Hawkins, representing 7B Building and Development. I'm with Baseline Engineering. I don't have a formal presentation. I just kind of want to address some of the comments from you commissioners and some of the comments from the residents. I will start with the comments related to traffic. So we did complete a traffic study for this car wash to make sure it would work here. And the intersection 699, or at the intersection of Canyon Road and Broadway, through that analysis by a registered or licensed traffic engineer, we did find that that intersection was already going to fail or has already failed, and the action that is needed would not be on a developer. It would be on CDOT in the city of Cortez. That was needed before this. I don't know when the property was zoned commercial either, but that would have been warranted before this car wash came in or any other business came in. So if you would have put a travel insurance office there, which brings less traffic, those numbers would have contributed to that failure, but that intersection would have already failed before that came in. So if it's based on that intersection failing, it's already failing, and that if any commercial development was denied at this property due to that, then you would never get anything developed here until that intersection was improved. But again, that's a action that needs to be taken by CDOT and the city, or together for that intersection. But I truly do sympathize with, you know, it being a dangerous intersection. I completely understand that.
I'm sorry, please use the microphone. I can't hear you.
Sorry. I do sympathize with that being a dangerous intersection. However, for it to stop development for a property that's zoned commercial, I don't think that's with, you know, as Katrina said, within the authority here. Based on the traffic study, in which I believe it was part of the packet. And again, we haven't received anything from CDOT. We've been kind of poking and prodding them for the last I don't know, 8 months probably, and haven't received anything from them either. So their comments do come into part, which we haven't received, and we know we cannot move forward until we get comments from CDOT. Moving down the line, there was a comment about water use, which when I first started working for the applicant was my same concern too. Water is a big deal here in Colorado, but 7B Building and Development uses a water reclamation system that recycles 70 to 81% of its water. And after talking to the mechanical and electrical engineer who is part of the design of this reclamation system, I found that I will probably use more water in a 10-minute shower than they would use on a car, fresh water. So most of the water used on the car is recycled water. And then as far as the fence and the noise, if we do get to that point where it's really becoming an issue, 7B Building Development does want to be a steward of the community. And if there is an issue with noise, they will address it if that does arise.
Any questions for him?
I think I have one more, Commissioner. I'm just checking my notes here. Oh, going back to the traffic. So in that same traffic study, you'll see that most of the traffic's generated on the weekends and also during the summer. If you look at the times that school is in, summertime is not one of them. There is summer school, but there's less kids going to summer school than there is going during the normal fall and winter and spring. As far as traffic during the rush hour, there's not many people washing their cars at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. Yes, there are people coming in, but I don't think there would be an interference with normal rush hour traffic there. And then lastly, I just wanted to ensure the intent of two of the conditions. Nancy, this might be a question for you. With regard to the state statute for noise, is the condition meant to follow that statute strictly, or is it just referencing that statute?
So the intent is that you must comply with that criteria at all times, or by default, you are defined as a nuisance, which is a criteria for denial. So the idea here is to set the permit that you stay under those noise levels at all times.
Understood. And if it does exceed those noise levels, as I mentioned earlier, the applicant is willing to take mitigation measures to, fix that nuisance, if you will.
Well,
Let me interject.
You'd have to be or be shut down by the city.
Let me interject for just a second. So if a concern in the neighborhood is that you're exceeding those decibel levels, the neighbors would make a complaint to town council, and town council will go out there with a meter, not town council, but the town would go out there with a meter and measure the decibels? Is that the way it would work?
Yes.
If somebody had a concern? Okay, thank you. So there is recourse if it gets loud. Thanks.
And then the last thing, for the intent of condition number 5, the applicant shall install all sidewalks. Are you referencing Broadway and Canyon, or Fourth? Is there a specific street? We are adding that sidewalk to Canyon.
Canyon, Broadway, also, yes.
Okay. Is that a CDOT item that they need to add on to, or is that just straight from the city code?
Well, city code requires it along all public street frontages.
Okay.
And it's a public street. I mean, yes, it's CDOT right away.
Yep.
And perhaps that would help with, it sounds like we have a school bus stop with no sidewalks at all at this point.
Yep, and we're willing to adhere to those conditions. Just wanted to confirm what we were looking at there. And then with that, Thank you, Nancy. And we do agree with all of the conditions that were set forth by staff.
Have you been involved with a very similar car wash like this in other places?
In Colorado, yes. 7B Building Development just came into Colorado recently in the last year, and I am working on 6 other car washes with them.
So in the existing ones, have you bothered to measure the decibel level of noise?
Those are actually not built yet.
Oh.
They're either in a similar process or under construction.
But you were just referencing Colorado. What about other states?
I can take a look into those noise decibels, but it may be moot if it's after the fact of this public meeting.
And I'm just curious, what other states are you in?
7B is in Texas, Iowa, Missouri, North Carolina, Indiana, and I might be missing 1 or 2.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah, baseline, and we're based out of Colorado. Yes.
I do have a question for the applicant, if now's a good time to do that. One thing we have not talked about so far is lighting. And in the packet I received, there were several different types of light structures mentioned and diagrams proposed. Can you tell me how tall your light poles are and how many there are on this site?
I cannot tell you the exact number. I do know that they were designed to meet the lighting code of the city, and also the height was also meant to be below that threshold. I could go to my computer and look up the
Or
exact
Nancy,
height.
can you address that, or should we let the applicant do that? And I noticed that seems like the light structures that you have are full cutoff, that they're down facing and they're not glaring, and that's great. But there were several different light fixtures involved in the packet, and I wasn't clear as to which one you were using.
Yeah,
So-
and some of those are affixed to the building, and some of those are actually light poles above the
Right.
vacuum stalls, and,
Right.
yeah.
So Nancy, would it be better for the applicant to go to his computer, or do you want, okay, Nancy's signaling, if you can go to your
Yes,
computer and
please.
answer that, that'd be great. Because there are other forms of nuisance than noise, and light might be one of them, too.
Agreed. And is the height of the lighting the concern, that it might cause a glare?
The light, yeah, the height of it would be, yeah, primary.
Gotcha. Yes, so those lights are all downcasting. The ones closer to the building are 12 feet in height, and the ones surrounding the paved lanes are 20 feet in height. The ones over the vacuum stalls are also 20 feet in height.
At this point, let me ask Nancy, so since their sign was originally going to be 20 feet in height, and that needs to be lowered, do we have any recourse about the height of the lighting poles being 20 feet, or does that fall within existing standards?
Existing standards state,
I thought it was
yeah,
20.
they shall be located so as to not to produce intense glare or direct illumination across the bounding property line from a visible source of illumination, nor shall any such light be of such intensity to create a nuisance again or detract from the use and enjoyment of the adjacent property.
Okay, thank you. And for the benefit of the neighbors who are here, I would ask you to repeat that so that if there is down the road an issue with light shining in your bedroom window or whatever, that you'll know what you're able to do. So would you mind repeating that, please, Nancy, into the microphone?
I have to lean over. Glare, no use or operation in any district shall be located or conducted so as to produce intense glare or direct illumination across the bounding property line from a visible source of illumination, nor shall any such light be of such intensity as to create a nuisance or detract from the use and enjoyment of adjacent property.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, sir.
Thank you.
City council has to have a public hearing on this also, don't they?
Yes.
Any other questions, commissioners? I guess I would entertain a motion of sorts.
I propose that we approve the site development plan, conditional use permit for the construction of a car wash Champion Express, as stated in the minutes.
There's a motion and...
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Let's proceed to vote then.
Scorts,
Yes.
McDaniel,
No.
Weiss,
Yes.
Remy.
Yes. So did we have some notes with that for the city council? Okay. Moving on to the next item.
Pardon me, Mr. Chairman, may I just clarify that this now does go before the city council, and they'll have a public hearing as well, at which people can make comments. Do we know when that might be scheduled for, Nancy?
September 13th, next Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. Next item is the Siebert LLC, isn't it? Yeah. Nancy, would you highlight that, please?
Okay, this is Siebert Cortez LLC is proposing a 3-lot subdivision of a approximately 16-acre parcel. The intent is the entire property is zoned highway commercial. American Family Care Clinic was recently constructed on what is proposed to be Lot 1. Proposed Lot 2 is a small commercial lot. Parking and access improvements have already been constructed on the proposed Lots 1 and 2. The proposed Tract 1, basically a remainder tract, would be 15.91 acres. It's currently vacant. We do not now have any current plans or uses proposed for Tract 1. It is, as I said, zone highway, commercial highway right now. The site is bounded on the south by Highway 160 East Main Street, an existing motel. Cortez Plaza, the old Walmart site, is to the east. To the west is a mix of single-family homes, vacant properties, and commercial properties. I went over the development standards. Really, the only applicable, majorly applicable one is the minimum lot area in the in the C zone, which is 3,000 square feet. The proposed smallest lot is 10,000 square feet. So all the lots do meet that proposed minimum or minimum site of 3,000 square feet. As far as all the other development standards, we did a review of the American Family, and it was built to those, so creating the new lots do not exceed any of those development standards on the proposed Lot 2. Is it Lot 2? Lot 1. Sorry, it's late. Done a lot. Probably the Planning Commission on a preliminary plat. And the reason this is a preliminary plat is because of some vacations of easements that are proposed and dedications of right-of-way. Otherwise, it might have met a minor subdivision standard, but in this case, it got bumped to a major subdivision preliminary plat because of the dedications proposed and requested in this case. The Planning Commission, in your action on a preliminary plat, you need to look at the physical arrangement of the subdivision and determine the adequacy of street rights-of-way and alignments and compliance with the Cortez thoroughfare plan, the street standards of the city, existing street patterns, etc. The Planning Commission, you also need to look at adequate easements for proposed utilities and future utilities and surface drainage are provided. In this case, the proposed Lot 2 is small but does meet the district standards for minimum lot size. Creating a lot for the existing clinic also appears to fully meet all requirements for landscaping, lot coverage, and parking. Adequate cross easements for the access and parking of these two small lots, covenants for shared maintenance of the parking lots for lots 1 and 2 must be provided. Lot 2 will also be subject to all site development requirements at the time of construction or when an actual use is proposed. The major issues with the requested subdivision concern adequate easements and compliance with the major street plan. There are multiple future streets proposed through the proposed Tract 1, including the extension of Texas Street, extension of Montezuma Avenue, and the extension of Kansas Street to connect with Hawkins, which, as you know, has a light out at the highway. The project as submitted does appear to meet development standards. They did not propose street dedications to comply with the major street plan. The conditions we've suggested below would ensure adequate access, drainage, and other aspects to promote the public health, safety, order, convenience, prosperity, and comply with the major street plan. Staff is recommending approval of the subdivision. The conditions include that, again, all requirements of utility providers, city departments, CDOT, and affected district must be satisfied in compliance with city codes and any other regulatory documents. We've added a couple to address some of the other concerns, which is prior to recordation of the final plat, the plat shall be revised to dedicate all property directly west of the two outlots and east of North Texas Street to the city of Cortez for right-of-way purposes and to ensure adequate public access to the lots. 3, prior to recordation of the final plat, the plat shall be revised to be compliant with the major street plan by dedicating right-of-way for the future locations of Montezuma Avenue and North Kansas Street. Any questions?
Right now, is there ingress and egress to each one of the lots?
There is physically on the lot, but access easements have not yet been created.
Okay. Guess I would open this for public hearing. Anybody to speak for or against?
James Garlinghouse, 33 Texas, North Texas. I'm not understanding what streets they're going to put through. Are they going to put Texas Street through? Are they going to put Kansas Street through? Are they going to put Montezuma? I think Montezuma's on private property, if I'm not mistaken. It's been owned by my mother-in-law and father-in-law for 30 years, and myself for 10, at least 10. It should be, according to me, grandfathered in, but then what do I know? Beg your pardon? Clarify what?
Answer your questions about Texas and Montezuma roads that you asked.
Oh, Okay, Texas Street, they can put through. They've got
Can
to
I,
meet,
just to clarify, there's no proposal to actually build the streets, but at the time of subdivision, we request that they dedicate right-of-way that
Yeah,
would just live there, sit there. It wouldn't be developed similar to the way Texas Street is now, where the right-of-way exists, but the street doesn't. So the idea here is that at this time, we would ask for right-of-way dedications. He's absolutely right, Montezuma is blocked by their property. So there's private property in the way. Even though we are requesting that they dedicate right-of-way for it, it could never be extended unless their property were somehow dedicated to
okay.
the city.
You're talking about Montezuma Avenue? What about it? They're going to extend it and put it through to Texas and put it through to Kansas? The way I understand it, the city doesn't have enough money to put Texas Street in or Kansas Street, either one. How are they going to do Montezuma? You've got the housing addition going in, they can find the right of way for it. Good.
Nancy, didn't you say Montezuma couldn't be extended?
The concern he expressed, which is absolutely correct, is that their property is in between this property and the current end of Montezuma Street. So that you couldn't extend it, even if this tract were to develop, if they were to dedicate right away, we'd still have a blockage in the middle of Montezuma Street. And then just to further clarify, generally, should that tract develop in the future, we would require the developer to construct the streets.
You would require the developer to what?
To construct the streets.
Yeah, so the city wouldn't put the street in, the developer would have to, correct? Okay. Okay. All right, thank you.
But just to clarify, though, the developer wouldn't build a street on private property, so, and the city can't force one developer to cure all the deficiencies that exist in the system, and that would be considered a deficiency in the system, the fact that there's no right-of-way, no public right-of-way. So in the event, as I understand it, this gentleman chose to develop his property, the city would also request a dedication of right-of-way, as we do all development applicants. And but a street won't get built until all of the right-of-way is acquired, which means it may never get built until all of the private property owners who currently own where the right-of-way would have to be in order to complete the street have dedicated the right-of-way, or the city chose to purchase it or condemn it, which they would have the legal right to do that as well, but that's a conversation for another day. But I think what Nancy is saying, that it's a requirement for the city to ask for right-of-way dedications in a development approval, so that at some point in the future, a road may get built and the city doesn't have to go out and purchase or condemn the right-of-way. So it's one way of making current developers contribute to the public transportation system through their development approvals, but we can't make them acquire all of the right-of-way when their particular development doesn't generate the need for all of that right-of-way.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but to get the subdivision approved, the streets have to be approved. Am I wrong? Am I right? What?
Well, they're just wanting to subdivide the lot, which are zone commercial, right? So it's not a subdivision, it's just dividing the lots.
We're dividing 3 lots off. They all currently, or will, by the time dedications are made, have access to actually physically built streets, public streets.
Okay, the North Texas Street, where I live, 33 North Texas, clear to Downing Street, is approximately 125 feet wide and 2.5, 3 miles long, including the house, the house on Texas Street. Senior moment there. I don't know what I was going to say. Did you ever do that? I just did.
So basically, Montezuma can't go through until you say it's okay.
Correct. It's all I want to know. But Texas and Kansas can. They haven't approved. They have a right of way for Texas Street. I know that. Probably a right of way for Kansas Street, as far as that goes. I just assume they built. Well, especially Texas Street. Take a maintainer, make it 30 feet, 50 feet wide, whatever you want to make it, and keep the traffic off my private ground. There's people out there right now that think they have the right to go on my private ground, which I planted the grass, by the way, and they're not hurting the grass. It's just the fact that they think they can drive on it and that they own it. Yep. Okay. You have my name. You have my address. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. There was someone else, yeah, okay.
Well, my phone just did its thing. You guys have your plat maps in front of you. I'm
Right.
Gary Unrein, 1902 East Downey Avenue. I'm opposed to this subdivision, but it's commercial property, and the rumor is that it's going to be high occupancy. That big lot, 15 acres, if you look at your map, you can see that they've made it into a rectangle. And that rectangle is going to be 1 unit, and they're talking about high occupancy housing.
Who's they?
It's just the rumor, and it's going to be
Because
true.
it's commercial, so it's not zoned for housing.
It's not zoned for high occupancy housing?
Is that correct? Is that mine correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Can it be rezoned?
Anybody can apply for anything to happen. but-
Okay. This is for the Planning and Zoning Commission. The street in front of my house for 2 or 3 blocks there was really bad, and they chip sealed it last year and gave us a decent street. A lot of traffic, that street's not going to hold up. That street doesn't hold up. In general, my past experience from someplace else that I lived is when your street went bad, they come in and assessed you and you made payments on that street. And if that is high occupancy, and they got 500 people using the street, and we got 15 people in 5 houses using the street, the amount we pay is going to be extravagant. But what I was going to get to also on your maps is, if you look at how Kansas is coming down the east border of Tract 1, that lot, and then it swings over and connects with Hawkins, Hawkins runs right into the back of the shopping center, right past the liquor store, on down to the motels. And it looks to me like that he doesn't own that land. And, but anyway, my main point here was to say, you know, it's showing, in this proposal, it's showing that it could go 50 feet high. A building can be built 50 feet high. The way that's laid out, I just, you know, there's one little in front of Lot 2, there's nothing. They haven't proposed anything. I fear that it's going to be a parking lot right across from my house. So in general, you know, it could be very costly to me. My house, and the neighborhood is a very nice neighborhood for working people. And everybody there has some pride in their house, and they're all really kept up. And my house value would drop substantially if they come in with high occupancy housing. We already have it to the east of us. I get a lot of foot traffic. I get whiskey bottles in my front yard. You know, just things. But anyway, that's all I have to say. I would like you to, when you consider these things, to consider some of the things I said. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Terry Briggs, and I live at, I forgot where I live. I haven't done this before. I live 18, thank you, 1812 East Downey, which is on the corner of Texas and Downey. And we're right there. We've only been here for 2 years. And I love my emptiness, looking across and seeing the mountains there from us. I want to know what the plans are for all of that. And I don't understand, is the whole lot considered
Commercial?
yeah, thank you, commercial.
I believe so, right, yeah.
So I could have commercial facing the front of my house from there.
Potentially, yes. I would
And
assume.
yeah, and I don't want that. I mean, we moved here because we wanted to be in this area and be close to our groceries and stuff we could walk to if we needed to. But I don't want it in my front yard, and that's what I would have coming there. So I'd like you to keep that in mind also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lena Galloway. I live at 750 Stratton Drive. And I just was curious because it says a major subdivision. How could a subdivision be commercial? Or are they taking a block of it and keeping it commercial and going to be turning into the other section subdivisions? Maybe I just don't understand.
A subdivision simply means taking a piece of property and dividing it.
Okay.
That's all it means. It doesn't mean there's houses going in or anything else. It means you're taking this big chunk of property and we're cutting it up in a couple different pieces. That's all.
Okay, so have you guys received anything where they want to put anything in there? No?
No.
Okay.
So everything would be a rumor as to what
Yeah.
you're hearing.
I haven't
guess.
heard any of the rumors, but,
Yeah.
okay. All right, I appreciate you clarifying that. Thank you.
I'm going to do this again, do it right. Kay Garling House, 33 Texas Street. I received a letter, mine left at home, that said that 1942 East Main Street was going to be subdivided. I went out to the industrial park and talked to them. I told them I thought it was fraudulent because they're advertising 1942 East Main, not 3 acres or 15 acres. So I felt that this whole letter was a fraud. and
Who
came back to
who'd you receive it from?
Who did I receive it from? City of Cortez,
Okay.
Planning and Building. Okay, but I do think that it's fraudulent in the fact that it doesn't give the correct dimensions of the property that's being subdivided. Okay, and I want to know, how in the world did he manage to get that healthcare building built on property that is still his? Okay? Because that's what we're here for, is to subdivide that piece of acreage out, right?
Behind the urgent care?
Say what?
Behind urgent care, that's the new clinic, right? Yeah.
Okay, but it's already been subdivided out as far as I can tell. He just did it without your guys' permission. And shouldn't that be illegal or fraudulent?
I would assume it's the rest of the property that he's wanting to subdivide, is that correct?
I don't really understand the fraudulent. So he built the family care on a small corner of the property and is now requesting to divide that out.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear her.
So basically, he has one big hunk of property, and he built the clinic in one corner of it. He still owns it all belongs in one piece. Now he wants to break it up in small pieces, so it's not fraudulent because he owned the property when he first built that. He just owned a big piece, and he just put the clinic
But
in
it's
one corner.
fraudulent to advertise it in the manner it was done. You must admit that. If I told you I had a German chocolate cake to sell you, and I took out a chunk of it and gave it to somebody else, wouldn't you be upset?
He still owns the whole cake.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I don't oppose the fact that they put a affordable health care unit there. What I do oppose is the fact that they come up and down the road consistently, up until about 8:30 at night. They go up and they come in at 7 o'clock in the morning and go down and around and go back to wherever they come from. So we've got lights shining in our window until 8:30.
Who is they, ma'am?
I beg your pardon?
Who is they?
Probably the workers.
The people from the health department thing and Big O Tire.
Excuse me, let me help her out a little bit if I can. At the end of the street, 33 Texas, is a cul-de-sac. It's a natural turnaround. So people come up there, they turn around, they come up there, they turn around in their trucks.
Mailbox.
Okay, the mailbox is there, but whatever. They just turn around, they don't.
You talking about the
It's
employees?
okay.
You talking about the employees of the urgent care?
No.
customers?
Just people in general. It's City Street. I'll probably back up there and say, yeah, it's okay, but when they turn around and what they call
Peel out.
my driveway, peel out, whatever. It's
It's frustrating.
I'm Jim Garlinghouse. Thank you very much. Okay, your turn.
Anyone else to speak for or against?
My name's Spencer Smith. Address is 27990 Road P, Dolores. I'm the owner of the property and maybe could shed a little light on it. I had purchased the 16.5 acres a couple years ago, and then, yes, built the urgent care on there, and am now requesting to subdivide those 2 lots that are on Main Street, 3/10 of an acre approximately for the urgent care and 2/10 for a pad site that's already built as far as parking, lighting, trash enclosure and all, but no proposed building for that site at this time. The other 15.9 acres is to remain vacant, and at this point do not have any plans for it. At someday, I'd like to do something with it, but I can see where the wording, major subdivision, I've had multiple friends that live in the area call and say, hey, I heard you're putting in high-density housing, and said, I'm not sure where that rumor started, but I have no plans. So that is the intent and the reason for the request of the subdivision. I'm happy to try to answer any other questions if there are any.
So my understanding is you're wanting to add 2 lots.
Yeah,
and so
yeah,
they'd be
subdivide
big
2
big
lots.
enough to put some sort of commercial enterprise in, is that?
One already has the urgent care that I
Yeah.
just built next to Big O Tire, so as a operating business that we had just finished about a month ago, got the certificate of occupancy and opened. The other would be a pad site right next to it, also on Main Street. And so just subdividing those 2 small lots off of the previous 16.5 acres.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have any questions.
So, of course, I'm...
Well, no, I will, but do you have any questions for?
So just to summarize, this,
Yes.
what you're doing is subdividing your commercial property for future use, but you don't have any plans at this time for it?
Not for the large
Okay.
acreage that's left off Main. I realize it's commercially zoned currently, but it's really in a residential area.
Gotcha.
So just splitting off these 2 small commercial lots on Main Street there.
Thank you.
Okay, it's own
Oh,
commercial,
sure, because we got on that.
right? And if he subdivides it, it can be zoned otherwise for housing, or...
That's my understanding, yes. I could make that request to zone it anything and may or may not get approved.
Well, may or may not get approved. How do you disapprove it? Private property, you don't have anything to do with.
They'd have to
Am I
come,
correct?
they'd have to come before us to ask for a change from commercial to anything else. And it's up to this town council, not a city council, to deny it or approve it.
Okay, so
he
they
can't
would
change
have
it
a-
on his own.
They would have a town council meeting and I would be notified?
Correct. Yes.
10-4.
Any other, well, you summarized it, Katrina, so. Any other questions? Okay. Anyone else to speak for or against? We'll close the public hearing and entertain comments.
I have questions for staff. I went out there and I drove the whole thing. I even drove on the dirt roads on that 15-acre property, been all around there and inside and out and outside and in. So I have a question for staff, because first of all, I didn't realize that Hawkins Street went all the way through the shopping center. I thought that was private property. I was surprised to find that Hawkins Street at the stoplight crosses the highway, and it's actually a public street that goes all the way back by the liquor store and the driver's license. So that was number one. Number two, at the liquor store right now, they have a drive-through on the side of the building. It doesn't seem like they would be able to maintain that if the city street actually went through there and they striped it or curbed it or guttered it or whatever. And they also have a loading dock on that side. Doesn't seem like their loading dock would be available anymore if that street actually was improved. Do you have any comments on that or not?
I think we're looking at long-term in the future, and things may need to change. But at this point, it seemed like it made sense where there's been significant public infrastructure at Hawkins with the light there to see if we can get a connection through. And that's just the intent of the master street plan. I was just following it. So yes, it's problematic on several levels to implement that plan fully.
Okay, I think I have one more thing here, give me a minute to find it. I guess I don't have any more questions. At this time, it seems like the application is pretty straightforward, aside from that one concern, and I didn't realize Hawkins Street was actually there. Thank you, that's all. Oh, I just found it, thank you. One of your conditions is for the small lot number 2, for that tiny lot there, that there would have to be some access through lot 1 to lot 2. Is that what I read somewhere in the your comments, Nancy? That lot 2 would have to be accessed through lot 1?
Yes, they do have that on their plans, an access easement to be dedicated with through the back of lot 1 to get to lot 2.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
That way, we prevent an additional access off of the highway directly.
Right, okay, that's all I have, thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Guess I would entertain a motion then.
I move that the application for a 3-lot subdivision of the stated property be approved as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Proceed to vote.
Weiss?
Yes.
Scorts?
Yes. Yes.
McDaniel?
Yes.
Remy?
Yes. Let's see. And this will go to city council at their next meeting? On the 13th? Okay. New business then, we have a resolution concerning the encroachment. Nancy, would you give us a highlight on that?
Okay, 102 East North Street, existing property owned by Patricia Behrens, not here. Property zone, neighborhood business, it's been used in the past as a commercial office. It's currently and a residence. The new owner wants to use it as a residence. Looking at county records, it was constructed in 1943. After a recent sale, a survey showed that there's an actual physical encroachment into Beach Street right-of-way of half of a foot or 7.2, or not half, 6/10 of a foot or 7.2 inches. I enclosed the survey. There, section 6.26 of the land use code has a section on encroachment permits that allows for the granting of an encroachment permit when it's identified as an inadvertent encroachment by an existing building that was constructed, I wrote contracted, but it should be constructed prior to city regulations for setback requirements or inspections. The structure appears to be constructed in 1943, although the area encroachment does appear to be an add-on, but it doesn't appear to be recent, and I have no way to find out when that was constructed. Although a 7-foot side yard setback is required in the neighborhood business zone, the structure will continue to be legally non-conforming. No variance is required for the development. I've provided aerial photos to show the encroachment. You can see that there's probably other encroachments along that same block. And then a photo of where the encroachment is. You can see that the door's there. I provided the criteria for the encroachment permit. It does appear that the encroachment's existing. It is integral to the structure. It has been in place for many years without issue or safety hazard. and it does not interfere currently with the existing sidewalk. With that, staff's recommending that the commission recommend to the council approval of the encroachment permit. The address is 102 East North Street. However, the encroachment is into the Beach Street right-of-way. I've prepared a resolution, or recommendation with a resolution for your consideration.
And is that right? The encroachment is 0.6 feet?
It's 6/10 of a foot. So I translated it to inches for you, which is 7.2. What? 6/10 of a foot?
And how did this come to light?
The property recently sold and they had a survey done.
Oh, okay. Do we need a public hearing on this?
Sorry?
Do we need a public hearing on this?
I don't think there's any, you could ask for public comment.
No, we'll move on. Since nobody wanted to talk earlier. Any comments? Motions?
I make a motion to approve the encroachment.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's vote.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Scorts,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Remy.
Yes. Any other items of business? Should have a list of building permits. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, hold a minute.
I'd like to ask that maybe we, as a P&Z commission, adopt the same rules for public comments as the city council has. Do you think, is that possible to where we could be consistent with them?
You mean to not come back and forth like that? Is that
Well,
what rules are you talking about?
You, like, the city council is 3 minutes and you speak once.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, can we do that so we're
I mean-
consistent with the council? Is that, can we just make that decision unilaterally, or do we need to fight it out, or?
Yeah, I guess you might just put it as a business item to adopt the rules of decorum and time limits that the city council uses in conducting their meetings. And you can have discussion, and certainly if there's members of the public that want to comment, I would entertain that as well.
No, I understand. I think there needs to be some consistency is all.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you. Okay, I move we adjourn.
Excuse me, I just like to thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If I get a notice, you probably will see me again. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We got a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Proceed to vote.
Scorts,
Aye, aye.
Weiss,
Yes.
McDaniel, Remy.
Yes.